Hello everyone, I'm BGM, and today we're going to be taking a look at Betor, Ancestor's Voice. This 5-drop Spirit Dragon came out in the Abzan precon in Dragonstorm Tarkir, and I love this thing, even though they're a high-maintenance bitch and they're all over the place. And I say that because other commanders will tell you what to run in them, like how Animar wants you to run creatures, Joyra wants you to run historic permanents, and Atraxa wants you to put counters on things. Betor needs 4 different things to function efficiently. The first thing Betor needs is for you to gain life during your turn. The second thing Betor wants is for you to have another creature besides Betor to put some +1/+1 counters on. The third thing that Betor is asking for is for you to pay life in some way before your end step so that you can do the fourth thing it wants, which is pull a creature out of the graveyard proportionate to the life you paid to put it back on the battlefield. So we have a long laundry list of things we need to do to have a really successful Betor end step trigger. Yes, this is all one trigger. And I'm super excited about Betor because I've been trying to make life gain work in this color wedge for about 2 years now, ever since we were lucky enough to receive the Birthday Boy and the Food and Fellowship precon. And I'm going to tell you guys right now that getting into 111 life is a trap. You're not going to be able to do it. This thing. We're running Betor now. We're going to have big creatures, we're going to gain large chunks of life, we're going to make them huge, and we're going to trample over with conventional combat damage. When I start building a new deck, I start with the least fun part first, and for me, that's removal. In order to have a functional commander deck, you need to have between like 12 and 15 pieces of interaction just to be able to sit at the table with the big boys. So, my approach to Betor's removal was creature heavy, because Betor needs to have an additional creature on the battlefield to put counters on, and he needs to have a creature in the graveyard. And so we need to run an above average amount of creatures to have Betor work, and removal is a great way for us to slot in some more creatures, even if we're sacrificing the speed of the interaction of our deck. So, let's get to it. We got a Quasali Pride Mage, a Canker Bloom, and an Insidious Fungus. And the reason I like these things is they're low drops, they have low activated ability cost to get rid of things, and they're creatures. We need to run creatures to have Betor's end step function optimally. These things can exist in the graveyard, they can exist on the battlefield, and we can activate them at instant speed. And since we're in white, we have a bunch of access to incidental removal and interaction that can just gain us little chunks of life here and there. Something that comes to mind is Solemn Offering, and even though it's a sorcery, it can gain us a chunky 4 life, which can turn to 4 counters at our end step. Another one is Faith's Fetters, which can lock down a creature without killing it and stop someone's commander, and it also gains us a chunky 4 life, which can be converted into +1/+1 counters if Betor's on the battlefield for the end step. Next vegetable we gotta force down is ramp. We need ramp just to make our deck function. And my favorite piece of ramp for any deck that cares about +1/+1 counters is the Kami of Whispered Hopes. It's a 3-drop little spirit that came out in March of the Machines, and this thing can tap for mana of any one color equal to its power, and this thing also has hardened scales on it. And because Betor also cares about +1/+1 counters, because he slams them down proportionate to the life we gain at our end step, the Kami of Whispered Hopes also helps with that. And the Kami of Whispered Hopes is a great place for us to put those counters, because we can use them for mana proportionate to this thing's power. I love this thing, and it gets a few cents more expensive every time I look at it. And speaking of counters, Rishkar Pima Renegade will help all our creatures that have counters on them already tap for mana. And when he enters, he can make himself, and one other thing, a dork, by putting a counter on it. And because we need to have cards in our graveyard to pull creatures out off Betor's end step trigger, I really enjoy Skull Prophet. This 2-drop Golgari dork can also put some cards in our graveyard if we don't need to use it for mana. Also along these lines, Bramble Familiar is a 2-drop elemental that came out in Eldraine that can also tap for green, but this thing can also put itself back into our hand so we can cast it for its adventure cost. Its adventure, fetch quest, cute name, 10 out of 10. Helps us fill our graveyard and can also get a permanent onto the battlefield for free. Alright, if we want to pull creatures out of our graveyard, we gotta find some ways to pay life. And we have to have card advantage for our deck to function anyway, and because we're in black, we can get some good card advantage by paying some life. And something new and spicy that we recently got in Bloomborough is this Darkstar Augur. This little bat creature has offspring, so if you pay the additional mana, you can get 2 of these boys, and they'll each give you their upkeep trigger where you're going to reveal the top card and you're going to lose life equal to its CMC, but you get to put it in your hand. Black Market Connections has become a Commander staple at this point, and I, for one, am glad that they keep stuffing this thing in precons. It's great, it gives you ramp, it gives you card advantage, and it can make you a body on the battlefield. Great suggestion for this deck. 10 out of 10, would recommend. And this thing keeps dropping in price because it keeps getting put in precons. Exemplar of Light is also an amazing piece of card advantage for this deck because it also puts counters on itself, and it draws cards, and it's only a 4-drop in white, and also it has flying on it. Alright, so now that we've talked about our approach to vegetables of removal, ramp, and card advantage, we get to go on to what the deck actually wants to do. And because we talked about it a little bit, let's fill our graveyards some more. And because we want to attack, we want to be putting counters on creatures, let's try to do it with some attack triggers. So the first one that came to mind is World Shaper. This thing's a 4-drop 3/3 Merfolk that came out in one of the Ixalan sets. And this thing's not super spicy by itself, but if we can slam some counters on it, it's going to keep milling our graveyard, and if we can get it to die, we can cheat all the lands from there onto the battlefield. And another one of my favorites that also mills cards on attack trigger is Blossoming Tortoise. Blossoming Tortoise is the truth, and you will never tell me otherwise. This thing mills cards on attack trigger and also cheats lands from your graveyard onto the battlefield. It also does some other things, but I get so excited about that first ability, I don't read them. Another attacker that can help fill our graveyard is Six. This game came out in Modern Horizons 3, and it used to be attached to Ren in the story. But this thing's really cool because it mills on attack trigger, it's not a super relevant body, but it does give permanence retrace. And we are in a creature-heavy permanent build, so we can have a little bit more recursion off of 6 for discarding some land cards and using that retrace ability. Dredge is a keyword that we can use if we would draw a card to instead fill our graveyard and put the card with Dredge back into our hand. It's on Golgari Grave Troll, which is a creature that cares about +1/+1 counters, so we're running that too. But we're also running Life from the Loam. This thing's amazing at filling the graveyard, and if you're running things like Terramorphic Expanse, Myriad Landscape, Krosan Verge, lands that sacrifice themselves, Life from the Loam can put those lands back in your hand, and you can keep sacrificing them over and over throughout the course of a game. Because Betor's end step trigger puts +1/+1 counters on a different creature proportionate to the amount of life we gained that turn, we want to give our other creatures lifelink. And I think one of the more exciting ways to do that is with a card that just came out in the Assassin's Creed set about a year ago, and that's Caudicus' Staff. This thing appeared in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's a white piece of equipment with a little bit of a white dependent equip cost of 2 white pips. But this thing will give the equipped creature lifelink, and if you have 30 or more life, the equipped creature is going to get +5/+5, indestructible, and it's going to prevent all damage that would be dealt to that creature. And you might not think that's impactful because of the indestructible, but like let's say that your thing would take the damage and then they remove the staff, well it's no longer indestructible and it took damage. So now it's going to die. But because the staff prevents the damage, even when the staff is removed, post the damage being done to your creature is going to live. And that's why I love Caudicus' Staff. Another standout for this is Loxodon Warhammer. It makes your creature a little bit bigger, it gives it trample, and it also gives it lifelink. Another one I really love is On Sarah's Wings. This is an aura for 4 mana in mono white. It makes the creature flying, vigilant, and legendary, and also lifelinking. Behemoth Sledge is a lot like Loxodon Warhammer, except color restricted. It gives trample and lifelink, and +2/+2. And while not technically lifelink, it's legally distinct. This card's amazing. It's called Armadillo Cloak, and this 3-drop aura in Selesnya says that whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. That's not technically lifelink. So if you have lifelink and Armadillo Cloak, it's like you have double lifelink. Alright, we finally made it to the meat and the whole purpose we built this deck. I built this deck to win with these creatures. The creatures are the win con. We're going to make them huge with +1/+1 counters. And 2 creatures that I had as commander decks before I was tricked by the birthday boy were Lathiel, the Bounteous Dawn. It's a 4-drop Selesnyan unicorn that says at the beginning of each end step, not just our end step, everybody's end step, we get to put a number of +1/+1 counters on our creatures equal to the amount of life we gained. And another one, very similar, but a lot more self-centered, is Treebeard. I love Treebeard. Treebeard's amazing. It's another 4-drop life gain Selesnyan commander, but this one's for Lord of the Rings. This one's got Trample Ward 2, and it's a 0/5. And it says whenever you gain life, you put that many +1/+1 counters on a Treebeard or a halfling you control. It's amazing. It is such a fun Voltron build. Highly recommend it. I wanted to add black for a little bit more complexity, but if you get either Lathiel or Treebeard in your hand, you're gonna have a good game, because these things are good enough to be commanders in this strategy by themselves. Our creatures are gonna be huge, must-answer threats, so we need some ways outside of Betor to put them back on the battlefield, and for those reasons, I really enjoy a Celestine the Living Saint. This thing came out in the Warhammer 40k Humans precon, the Esper one, and it's a good time. It's a flying life-linking body, but it also gives us an end-step trigger to return a creature from our graveyard to the battlefield proportionate to the life we gained. So it's a lot like Betor, except it cares about the life we gained instead of the life we paid. Another one that cares about the life we gained instead of the life we paid is Rudolph Dustbringer. This thing is a little pricey and kind of bad, if I'm being real with you. It's a flying, life-linking, death-touching 4/4. It's a human vampire angel, and this thing has a trigger similar to Celestine, except this one requires us to pay 2 mana. Also, whenever we gain life, Rudolph becomes indestructible. We have a lot of pieces of equipment we care about, and we also have a lot of auras we care about, and a way that we can bring one of those back from our graveyard each turn is Danitha, New Benalia's Light. This thing came out in March of the Machine's Aftermath. It's a life-linking, vigilance, trampling 2/2 for 3 mana and Selesnyan colors, and it lets us cast an aura and equipment from our graveyard each turn. And because this is a life gain deck, we are of course running Veto of the Dust Road. This thing is just Sanguine Bond on a legendary vampire creature, which means that whenever we gain life, somebody's going to lose that much life. And because our creatures are going to be huge and also life-linking, we ain't even got to get through with combat damage if we got Veto on the battlefield. He can also pay 5 mana and give all our creatures lifelink. Another vampire we're going to talk about is Astarion of Baldur's Gate 3 fame. This is a 6-drop life-linking, death-touching vampire half-elf noble. And this 4/4 says at the beginning of your end step, we pick friends or feed. If we pick friends, we're going to gain another chunk of life proportionate to the life we gained that turn. But if we pick feed, someone's going to lose life proportionate to the life they already lost that turn. Astarion's a great finisher and is a must-answer threat in this deck. And rounding out our list of win-con creatures in our Betor deck is going to be some +1/+1 counters, matters creatures. And one of them came out in Betor's very own precon. This Canopy Gargantuan is a 7-drop, 7/7 flying mono green dragon that gives us upkeep trigger to put a number of +1/+1 counters on all our creatures proportionate to their toughness. It's great, it's a large body, it's gonna put counters everywhere. I love this thing. But you know what else puts counters everywhere and is also on theme? This here, Nykthos Paragon. And Nykthos Paragon has been in every iteration of this life gain deck since before Lord of the Rings came out. I love this card, and it's a little bit complicated. It says that whenever we gain life, we may put that many +1/+1 counters on all creatures we control. And because it's got that may in there, we can wait until we have a more significant life gain trigger. I love this thing. It can make your board big and huge and game ending, and that's why I love it. It's also a bulk card. Alright, and part of my Mephistophelian deal with the content gods, you may now put your forehead on the glass if you would like to receive a forehead kiss. Thank you so much for watching my joyous, nerdy nonsense. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Like and follow for more bigger, gayer magic.
And a very special thank you to my patrons who are helping me produce this joyous, nerdy nonsense. Thank you guys so much. I couldn't do this without you. Thank you.